South Korean President Yoon Seok-yeol has declared martial law. This is a self-coup attempt, not unlike January 6th for Americans, although I would not push that comparison too far. I wouldn't push it very far at all, actually. So where to start? First of all, I said like 6 months ago, this shit was going to happen, right? It didn't take a genius. President Yoon has been saying shit like this out loud. He's been musing. He's been saying crazy shit sometimes, and like just it's not getting covered. It's getting laundered, right? But he said he might be like forced, quote unquote, to declare martial law months ago, you know? And from day one of his presidency, he was using the power of the state to target his political enemies, which in South Korea, that's like a tradition. I mean, it's extremely common. But he was doing it on like shakier grounds than normal. You know, like going after guys like the previous national security advisor, and he's making treasonous accusations against the guy. But then like the grounds for it, it's stuff like, well, he was like the point man setting up summit diplomacy with North Korea. So it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know? So anyways, that political witch hunt stuff is kind of in the background and it's important context, but it's not at all clear that the military is on Yoon's side here. So he declared martial law against quote unquote anti-statist forces at like 4 a.m. Korea time. Already this thing seems to have petered out. It's like 6 hours later, you know. The defense minister, Kim Yong-hyun, who is very close to U.S. policymakers and especially to the Pentagon, well, media reports are saying that martial law might have been his idea, might have been something he floated to President Yoon, you know, but he's the complication there is like Kim Yong-hyun, the defense minister, is a political appointee sitting on the most powerful institution in the South Korean national security state. And like, I'm not 100% on this. I don't think he commands any troop loyalty independent of the South Korean constitution, independent of lawful orders. So the military in South Korea is very predictably a very conservative institution, but a coup attempt is like more than just conservatism. That's counter-revolution, you know? I don't think you got the juice for that, man. And so what's the opposition doing, right? The opposition in this case is the left liberal progressives, the Democratic Party, the Minjudang. They are flatly, immediately rejecting this martial law declaration. They're calling it a self-coup attempt, which it is, but it's huge that they're immediately calling it out. You know, opposition leader Lee Jae-myung called it wrong and unconstitutional. The media, interestingly, in South Korea is still functioning normally, it seems like, which is a huge sign. The inspector general at the Ministry of Justice, he resigned as soon as this happened. He called it a mutiny, right? And then this was interesting. Han Dong-hoon and Oh Se-hoon, who are both conservative leaders aligned with Yoon politically, they've made statements saying this is wrong, distancing themselves from Yoon, right? So this is very live. It's moving super fast, but at this moment, it looks about as successful as January 6th, right? Now, why is this happening? That is the question. Because I feel like maybe me and like 5 other people were warning about this while the rest of the fucking think tank watchers were cheering trilateralism and trying to get in on fucking AUKUS and, you know, working with Japan and inflating the China threat and shit like that. But look, as recently as 2 days ago, Yoon's approval rating was at 25%, which is dog shit. And it's been dog shit his entire presidency since day one. And it's worth remembering that, like, he skated by on the skin of his teeth. It's a mixed metaphor, maybe. But he had the narrowest electoral margin of victory in South Korean history, you know? So wildly unpopular from the jump. And South Koreans this whole time have been suffering under relative economic precarity, you know, economic austerity regimes, suppressed economic growth, inflation, housing affordability issues, right? Not unlike, you know, much of the developed world. But like Yoon's policies have made that worse. And how has he dealt with that? He's dealt with it by trying to sell the public jingoism, anti-North Koreaism, as compensation or as a distraction, right? But what the normie pundits and the think tanks never talk about is that Yoon, again, from day one, has been using the national security law and accusations of North Korean subversion to go after not just his political enemies, but to go after trade unions and trade union leaders, to break up strikes. He's been engaged in active labor repression, using the national security state itself and police itself to do that his entire presidency. That is a direct affront to democracy, right? But South Korean organized labor, like, they ain't having it. They're pretty militant, right? Especially by, like, European standards, American standards. And 2 weeks ago, there was a massive rally in downtown Seoul, the capital, of union members. It was like 10,000 strong, demanding Yoon's resignation. The Korean Federation of Trade Unions, which I think is the biggest union in South Korea, the National Farmers Federation, the Korean Women Peasants Association, right? They were all out in force demanding this guy's resignation. And people outside Korea probably don't know this. South Korean doctors have been on nationwide strike demanding pay increases, right? And there was a massive labor protest scheduled for tomorrow. So Yoon is catastrophically unpopular. He's got unpopular economic policies at a time when regular Koreans are being squeezed by cost of living and job scarcity. And then on top of all of this, the opposition in South Korea has been calling for investigations into corruption scandals involving Yoon's wife, involving some of his political appointees. Notably, the Biden administration, amid all of this, is shitting the bed, because that's what they do best. They shit the bed, okay? They have offered no condemnation of martial law yet, no condemnation of a coup attempt, but instead just put out some mealy-mouthed bullshit about the alliance is ironclad. I'm not fucking kidding, right? Kurt Campbell, friend of the pod, let me pull this up, motherfucker. He said, this is my Kurt Campbell voice. So we are watching the recent developments in the ROC with grave concern. We're seeking to engage our ROC counterparts at every level, both here and in Seoul. The President, the National Security Advisor, the Secretary of State have all been briefed on developments and are being kept appraised of the situation as it unfolds. I do want to underscore that our alliance with the ROC is ironclad, and we stand by Korea in their time of uncertainty. I also just want to underscore that we have every hope and expectation that any political disputes will be resolved peacefully in accordance with the rule of law. Fuck you, dude. Like, this is disgusting. This is like almost beat for beat what, like, the Reagan administration was saying while People Power were overthrowing Marcos in 86. It's this fucking like, but the alliance is everything. It's like, you're selling out the people, but the alliance matters. Like, what is that shit? You can't even condemn a declaration of martial law done for political reasons? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I know you've been numbed by fucking supporting a genocide. It's sick shit. This is sick shit. Take a breath. Okay. So what happens from here? Okay. Yoon is almost certainly not going to finish his term in office, right? He's probably going to go to jail, which is another South Korean tradition. They jail their presidents like it's cool, which kind of is cool. And then the progressive opposition, the Democratic Party, like, they have a good chance of winning the next election. Like, it's theirs to lose, right? And that, imagining a future where Trump is president and then the progressives are in power again, that creates space for a radically different, less militarized, peace-oriented foreign policy. And that kind of foreign policy might not need U.S. boots on the ground in South Korea. And so the establishment voices, the blob, the Korea watchers that are getting paid by the think tanks, like, they are probably going to be shitting bricks, not the other bricks, but like shitting metaphorical bricks about a world in which South Korean progressives converge with Trump once again, right? Because all they want They don't give two shits about the people, but they do care about that alliance, right? They do care about having boots on the ground to deal with fucking China. So anyway, this is a profound blunder on Yoon's part. The 386 generation is now South Korea's ruling class, like the people who cut their teeth protesting against military dictatorship in South Korea in the 70s, in the 80s, and the 60s. They run South Korea, right? They're very conservative by Western standards, but in the Korean context, they are the left progressives. And given their political origins, there's no way they're going to go along with the fucking coup. Like, are you kidding? So Yoon did this by like massively misreading the room, you know, without having laid sufficient groundwork. He fucked up coup d'etat 101. At a minimum, he would need to make sure he's got the military and media on lock. And it, so far, knock on wood, looks like he doesn't have shit. So this whiffs of desperation. It's just a tragedy that it's the kind of desperation that sells out his own country's democracy for his personal benefit. But militarists and jingos always do that shit. And they do it while telling you the opposite.